This is Michael Flores with Checkmate Turbine Pest in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and you're listening to the world's #1 pest control training podcast, the Pest Geek Podcast with Frank Hernandez.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, here every day discussing all things pest. And I want to remind everybody to join the Pest Geek Society. Join the revolution of what's happening in the pest control industry. Join us on Facebook, Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group. We're also on Twitter. We're on YouTube, pestgeekpodcast.com. Join us. Join in on the conversation. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you need to be more successful. Contribute, engage. And now here's Jeff McGovern with today's topic.
Well, thank you, Frank. And I'll tell you, folks, today this is the coolest thing. I'm actually outside of a warehouse facility in North Florida. And here it is, Memorial Day. And a PMP had asked me to come out and take a look at it with him, and there's nobody here. So in looking at the facility, because those guys are running a little late, I'm glancing at this from the exterior, and I thought, you know what? Let's walk around and just note a couple of things that could be an issue with regards to pest control, because I'm standing right outside the facility. Now, at first glance, walking a little bit away from the building, out into the parking lot area, we have parking lot islands. Now, these are attached to the sidewalk areas that are right in front of the building. And you know what? You need to check every single one of those to be sure we don't have anything breeding in those areas. I mean, just glancing down in, man, there's trash, cigarette butts, all kind of stuff in there. And it's all the type of things that could be an issue with regards to pests. Now, walking up to the building itself, I see from that parking lot island, I jump about 5 or 6 feet, and now I got bushes. And you know what? The bushes are not trimmed up high. So the thick growth goes all the way down to the ground, and deep inside I can see mulch, and I can see little bits of rock, little bits of paper, and all type of things that could be a resource for pests. As I turn and face west, I've got the same situation in a raised garden area. Same thing. The bushes and the shrubs are not really trimmed up high, and there's even a little bit of a tree in there, and there's spaces underneath that tree that could prove to be a problem for pests. Now I'm walking past doors. I got reflective glass. That could be attractive. Not too much going on as far as trash and debris right by the doors, but you know, the stonework and everything else around there is pretty beat up and battered, and over time, that's going to be an issue. And looking down, a cigar butt. Wow. I guess people just hang out in this area, and you know what? Not only do they smoke their cigars here I've got an empty Gatorade bottle, got a little bit left in it. Somebody's left that here. There's a couple of candy wrappers. There's more cigarette butts, some more cigar butts. So these are places where human beings hang out. And you know what? When you get people hanging out, stuff happens. Now I've got a man door. And of course, it's got all these signs about how everything's going to be taken care of if you walk up to this area. As far as an examination or investigation, I do see some bait station labeling on top of the devices, and different pest control companies have labeled those. I see placards on the building, and looking up, I see issues where we've got some sealing that's been done underneath some of the awnings and eaves. So I don't know what was getting in there. Birds, perhaps. They're blocking something off. And as I continue walking to the west, I've got more cracks and crevices and spaces in the building. I have tip wall joints that are in some cases doggone beat up. This building has had some hard use because I see pieces of the exterior stonework laying on the ground. I see cracks and crevices and holes in the masonry and the concrete, and those are all zones that can be a problem with regards to pests. Now I come upon a pile of garden hoses. You got to wonder what's going on with that. And there's a spigot there. There's old garden hose, new garden hose. Man, that is a terrible place for pests to gather because of water issues and everything else that could be in this area. And then I come upon more improperly trimmed bushes and shrubs and mulch and everything else that produces a pest population zone right up against the building. And looking out ahead of me, wow, across a drive area, we got picnic tables. So that tells me, this is a place where human beings can feed. And if we have feeding people, we have feeding pests. Got a palm tree here. Oh boy, rats could climb that, and it's just about touching the roof of the building. There could be issues with that. Let's walk around the west side, and sure enough, we have another palm tree, and the fronds are right up against the structure, and that could be a potential entry zone as well. There's also some beautifully planted, really high-end gardening done out front, and of course, this is obviously the public exposure area where people drive up and say, wow, what a beautiful facility. And of course, they're just little bits of trash and debris. It's kind of like a jungle in there, peering down into it. There's even possibly little pathways where creatures have been romping and dancing around, and they're awfully close to the structure. We've got a great big trash can near the front door, and peering at that, I see we've got a liner in it. And oh my goodness, it is just all full of good old-fashioned smelly trash. There's a great big lizard down in there. Hey fella, how's it going? And if I tap the side of the can, there come the flies popping up. So that could be an issue as well. More bait stations, sprinkler heads sticking up out of the ground that fire against the building possibly, and certainly create the rainforest in all these thickly planted areas. These are zones that are really vulnerable. And when you have this situation, you've got to find some way to mitigate the pest issues. And in many cases, that means mitigating the problems with irrigation and with the way they landscape the building. Now, as I peer down the west side of the structure, I see we have all these lovely planted areas, and they are within a foot of the building, creating a jungle environment right up against the building itself. Because like 1 foot away isn't cutting it, because I can see by the growth, in some cases, it's right up against the stone of the building. And even if somebody makes an application to the ground, possibly to stop insects in the mulch areas, the insects are going to climb right over the branches in this shrubbery and right onto the side of the building 4 and 5 feet up and pass any type of treatment we may even try to do. And looking down, I see we have some squishy wet areas with glistening little pools of water. So all those zones are resource points for pest issues. Oh, there's a dumpster sitting out there randomly in the middle of the parking lot. Don't know why that's there. It's got a lock bar on it, so it may be one that somebody's going to pick up. But this is just a few moments in time where I've taken a little walk around the structure, waiting for some folks to show up. And these are the things I've picked up just strolling. And the longer I peer and look, the more stuff I see. There's a shattered electrical box. It looks like there's some old lighting that may have fallen off the building, and why it's still dumped in the shrubbery areas, I don't know. It's well corroded and rusted, but you know, that creates habitat. And anytime you have habitat up against the structure, you have a problem. And now that I'm coming back in the opposite direction, out there by those picnic tables is the upright ashtray. You know, those ones you stuff the cigarette butt in a little hole, and I can see where somebody has dumped that over. So that could be an issue as well. So in just a little bit of time, in taking a short walk, I've seen vulnerabilities within this structure. And the longer I look at it, the longer I move around and change my angle of approach, the more I'm going to see. For example, I didn't see that ashtray on the first pass, but when I came back and saw it from a different angle, boom, there it was. And that's what happens. You have to look at things from different angles. You have to look up, you have to look down. You have to look underneath, around, behind, and on top of, and that's what I talk about in the 12 key factors. So in just a few moments, strolling around outside, I found out all types of things about the vulnerability of this structure. And as I move forward, once the pest control folks get here, maybe we'll have some additional information for them, because when I see buildings like this, there's a huge amount of penetration points. And any one of those penetration points could be the key to unlocking the puzzle of what's actually getting inside the structure. Because that's how you protect your clients. You identify the penetration zones, whatever they may be, and you eliminate those penetration zones. Sometimes that's through the use of pest control supplies. Sometimes it's through retraining of the human beings involved in the process. And as I'm walking back over to my truck, man, do these people love cigars at this place. There are cigar butts all over the place outside. And so, at any rate, this is Jeff McGovern, the Pest Coach. And Frank, I'm going to turn it back to you, and we'll continue this type of thing with little strolls through the field to see what we see and to find out if there's ways that we can help every PMP be more effective. You folks have a good day.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.